So welcome to the call. Got people jumping on here already. Adam, and I see Aaron and Rick. I see Brian and Alicia, Tom Nardone. Be talking a little bit about Tom's event here coming up. Mark is on, Freya's on. I see Michael, Richard Hamilton, pretty close by here. I think if that's the right Richard Hamilton, I'm thinking it is. Ken, welcome. Pierre, awesome to have you guys on. We had a good weekend this last weekend. So with the Easter Resurrection Sunday yesterday. So that's good. Joe Mueller's on. Welcome, welcome. I'm excited about today's call. Got to meet Leon a couple about almost a year ago, I think now. First time I met him 2 or 3 times, I think, since then at different events, but I'm excited about today's call. We got look like Pam's logging on now, and Kyle. More people. So more people to the show. Hey Pam, how you doing? Linda and Mark jumping on. So I'm going to kind of share a screen here and just kind of get going like I normally would go. Appreciate everybody for being on. Welcome to today's call. Always like to kind of give a little bit of a brief introduction and a little bit of a brief talk before we get on with our special guest for today. And today our special guest is Leon Johnson. We talked a little bit before we got going here the last couple minutes, and he's having a little bit of a problem with his screen, so he might go off the screen, and if he does, I'll just put this this slide up here. So welcome, Leon. Appreciate you being on today, sir.
Great to be here.
Now, Leon, I've been telling everybody that you've been doing this for quite a long time. So how long have you been doing the real estate?
Well, when I was in the military in 1975, I got my real estate broker's license in Missouri.
That's
so long time. I'm a dinosaur.
It's 1975, and I was born in 1977. So that's 48 years that this man has been in real estate. So he's been doing this since before I was in diapers. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you guys, I have seen a lot of people talk on the subject that he's going to talk about in the next couple of days. I have heard at least 200-300 speakers speak on, specific topics. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody that I feel like is as genuine and as clear as Leon. He also really enjoys speaking, and he enjoys teaching, and that'll definitely come out today. So I'm excited to have him on today's call.
Want to remind for those kind words.
I appreciate you in your time today. I do want to remind everybody about last month's call. If you were not on last month's call, you've got to go back and listen to them. All of our calls we've been doing this for about 1.5 years now. They're all on our Good Success website. So you go to goodsuccess.com and you can find where our what's going on in real estate calls are at. And like I said, there's about, 18 of them now. But last month's call really talked about not just leaving a legacy, but also living out your legacy. But also she gave some really good tips and really good things of what people don't do last call. So please go back and watch that. I know we've got a good 600-700 views already on that, and we're not really looking at it for views. We're really just looking at to try to get the content out to everybody. So Mary Hart's been a great friend of mine for about the last 10-12 years. She's super smart, and you guys will learn a lot from that call. Me, since last month, I don't think there's anything better than Resurrection Sunday, Resurrection Day, the day that Jesus came back from the dead. And we serve a risen Savior, and I am super happy about that. Lots of other religions serve lots of different other people that aren't alive, and I'm so glad that we get to have Jesus as our Savior. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not ashamed about that one bit. And love the Lord with all my heart. Want to serve him the best I possibly can. This quote kind of just hit me this month. Don't wish it were easier. Wish it were better, by a longtime mentor of a lot of people, Jim Rohn. And I think this year's one of those years where like a lot of us are probably thinking in certain areas of our life, I wish things were easier. I wish I didn't have to go through this, wish this problem didn't come up. But really we shouldn't be thinking about that. We shouldn't be focusing on that. We should be focusing on how can I get better? How is this going to make me stronger? You know, if you're lifting weights as a youngster and you're trying to get stronger, you don't look at that weight and say, oh, I hate you. I want to avoid you. You want to embrace that weight. You want to lift that weight so it makes you stronger. So get out there and get better and make it happen. A couple things that we did here as a family, it was spring break for us and our kids. So we took the kids and my mom and my brother and sister and their kids to Disney World and to SeaWorld. We had a good time. It's so funny if you really see that the look of my son Zach's face on the Hollywood Tower of Terror. That was amazing. And then over here with Edie, there was this dragon that was photobombing us in the background over here. Also got to stop at Buc-ee's. I think that's how you say it. Everybody in all my friends list and Facebook has been talking about Buc-ee's, and I'm like, what in the world is this Buc-ee's all about? But it was crazy. I'll tell you what, folks, they're out of control there with Buc-ee's, and they do have some good food there as well. Something else that I think is good news. If you look at the mortgage data, interest rates have consistently have been dropping for the last 3 weeks in a row. So keep that in mind, everybody. You know, if you're thinking about, you know, that, and you can also talk, if you're a realtor, talking to your buyers about that. We have also seen inventory actually go down quite a bit. So inventory was starting to actually go up, and it was going up in a fast way for a long time. And all of a sudden we are starting to see inventory numbers go down a little bit as well. This was an interesting thing. And obviously I'm in Indiana, so this is probably a good, you know, one from one of our marketing, you know, pieces at some point. But as far as cash flow score, so the top markets in the country as far as cash flow is concerned, this is a great little snapshot that we saw here. And if you guys are interested in this, I can send you a link to the person. I subscribe to this housingalerts.com. I've been doing it for about 10 years. This guy's super smart. And he does a lot of different graphs and a lot of different research that he does around the country. And I tell you, like, he really does know his stuff. It does cost a little bit of money. It's not a free service by any means, but he always reports on the MSAs in the country that have gone up in value, gone down in value, has a lot of the different market research. You know, some of my mentors that I've hired over the years use him as well for their own market research, even in family office and that kind of stuff. So it ranks Indiana #1 as far as the cash flow state in America. #2 is actually Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and then Kansas. So again, this is only cash flow. This isn't like total return. This isn't any of that those kind of numbers. But Pam, what do you say for the research? Who did you say? So it's Housing Alert. So if you go right here to this housingalerts.com, that would definitely be a place that I would highly recommend. And I did do a Facebook post that talked about, I think there's like, I don't know, 280 or 380 declining MSAs in the country. And I posted that, and it was such a large list. Most people couldn't see it on Facebook, but I Facebook messaged anybody who asked me that list, and also some other things. So I thought this was interesting to kind of bring up. And then also, since last month, we've also had a banking crisis meltdown, right? And I just kind of wanted to just, you know, say a few words about this, and this will kind of be on today's call. People will be able to see it, but also, you know, as people watch it down the road, I think a lot of people have asked, you know, why did this happen? How did this happen? And if you followed closely, you probably already know this. But I kind of wanted to just put it into some real life investment, you know, maybe talk and just try to like help people figure this out. So first of all, I believe this was 100% created by the Fed because they keep raising interest rates. Like, if you want to know the root and the reason why this is happening and why people now no longer feel like any time they have more than $250,000 in any one of their single bank accounts that it's safe, it's because interest rates have been rising. And so you have to, and their explanation of this is really, it's all in the bond market. So they're buying bonds and selling bonds. And when they were when, you know, a year and a half ago, they were buying these bonds at, you know, 1% interest rate, maybe 2%, mostly less than 1%. And now all of a sudden they got to go out and the 10-year bond, the 10-year treasury, they're having to pay 4 and 5%, or they're having to pay that out. So what happens when they need liquidity? When they need liquidity, they've got to go out and sell the bonds that they bought last year. So let's put this into kind of real life scenario. So many of the people on this call are investors in our fund. And if my fund right now, I pay 12%, right, to my fund. If all of a sudden I had to pay 18% to my investors, what would happen? Everybody who was investing into this 12% fund, like, is going to want to get their money out so they can go and invest and get 18% on the exact same, you know, security, so to speak. And what's that going to do? That's just going to create a mess. And on top of that, when people start talking, well, then now all of a sudden you have, you know, people wanting to start moving their money. So why do I bring this up? A couple reasons is, first of all, even within our own companies, we were looking at this as, oh my goodness, like, do we need to start making some changes? And you might need to start thinking about this as well. Do you need to start making some changes? And, you know, typically, you know, I've always thought Chase is my main bank. And if you look at the list of the banks that are the too big to fail banks, Chase is literally the one bank that's all on its own on the top. Like, nobody else even touches that bank as far as what the government believes that they are too big to fail. And then next, you kind of have the Citibanks and the Wells Fargos and the Bank of Americas in this next tranche of too big to fail banks that the government basically has stated that they're going to back. And it was interesting because when all of a sudden these banks start going under, you know, I'm calling my friends asking, what are they doing? And I heard this answer more like over and over and over again. They're moving money from small banks and moving it into the larger banks. And Chase is probably one of those banks that more people were moving their money into than any of these other banks. So it's really creating, like, you know, obviously fears in the market. It's also making a lot of cash move around in the market. But also, you know, I do think the good thing about this is to kind of really, you know, take a look at what you have. And we've got several different businesses and several different accounts and several different things that we are taking action on ourselves personally to possibly create separate banking relationships. And also there are some other things, I'm not going to get too deep in this call, but there are other ways to be able to insure that money. You can also buy bonds yourself. You can buy the treasury debt yourself. And that's kind of like a way to kind of just, you know, it's security. I think you don't need to look at it like return. It's like the money was sitting in the bank anyways. Does that make sense? So, but you know, you can buy treasuries and get 4% right now, you know? So if you think about that, that might be something that people might want to be thinking about, especially if they've got more than $250,000 in an FDIC insured account. It's something that we're thinking about and we're doing, taking action on in our own personal business here. But just wanted to throw that out there about why is this happening, and also what are some things that we probably want to do ourselves. I don't really know the answer on, I know a lot of people really still want to believe in the small banks. I do kind of feel like this is a little bit of a forced way for more people, for the big banks to actually get bigger. And I don't really know how much of it we can, you know, how much of that say so we have in the big picture. But at the end of the day, like I think I'm looking at small banks as from a different perspective now, making sure they're FDIC insured. And a lot of the smaller banks you're finding out are offering, you know, savings account rates for businesses at 4 and 5%. So if you have money that's just sitting as backup money and you need to have liquidity, these can also be a way that you can really make, you know, an actual real return. You know, normally you don't think about, at least we haven't for the last 20, 30 years, thought about having money sitting in a savings account that's actually earning anything. It doesn't really matter. It's so insignificant. But now, I mean, you're talking 4 and 5%. It's actually a significant number that actually could be part of your guys's thought process there. So just wanted to kind of hit that point real quick. I also like to promote events. I don't know if Leon's speaking. Are you speaking, Leon, at this next event? No, your son is. Oh, you guys both are. Oh, awesome.
Both of us, yeah.
Yeah. So I love Jim Ingersoll. One of my best friends in real estate, known him for about 12 years as well. And he has an event coming up. If you guys can make it to this event, May 9, 10, and 11, I promise you, I think the tickets are almost sold out. There's not a lot of time to make that happen for you guys, but hit this event. I think it's one of the best 3-day real estate events in the country, if not the best. And I think the biggest thing you're going to find is people like Leon, people like Jim, that are genuine, that really want to help people. And I love being a part of that group there. So these are some of the speakers. Mary, who was one of our guests recently. Tom Barry was one of our guests recently. You've got Leon on, David Phelps, a good friend of mine, Augie Blaylock, John Heyer, super smart guy there as well, Alicia. So if you guys can make it to that event, make it happen. Also want to promote this as well. Tom Nardone's on this call. I think if you want to pipe in, you can, Tom. If not, I'll just do the best I can to promote this. So early bird special is probably already gone. But $299 after March 1st, and $399 for if you want to book outside. And that's that $299 price is the extra price. You're going to have to pay for the cruise just because you're going on the cruise, right? But that $299 is to actually get you in the conference. We had a great time and a great group of people that came to the last one. I'm looking forward to this next one. It's in February of next year. So February 11 through 18, right around my birthday. InvestorAddicts.com. You can find out more information about that. You want to go on that if you guys can. What better way to be able to learn real estate, be trapped on a boat for a week with a bunch of other super smart people than to go on a cruise. Also upcoming for me, want to remind everybody about this. I am actually going to Costa Rica with this year's seniors at our Christian school. I'm leaving next Tuesday on a half missions trip, half senior trip. Super proud of them. They raised a bunch of money at a student play that they did last weekend. And if you guys follow me on Facebook, you got to see a lot of my stories. I posted some of those. So appreciate the seniors. I'm excited about this trip. You guys pray for us as we'll be in Costa Rica. And I want to remind everybody about the free-for-all event coming up September 7 through 9, goodsuccess.com. You guys can get more information about that there. And if you guys are interested in last year's videos, you guys can get those on the website as well. I do want to invite everybody to join the Real Estate Free for All Facebook group. It's super easy to find. You just put Real Estate Free for All in the groups when you're looking to search there. And we're going to be trying to really kind of promote more, make sure everything's in that group for these calls and for our local meetup group and for the Real Estate Free for All event coming up in September. Want to remind everybody as well, we do have a lending company. If you guys are interested in either being an investor in our fund, it is for accredited investors only, or if you're a borrower, we do loan money in about 13 different states, mostly Midwest and Southeastern states. And if you know borrowers are people that are looking for hard money right now, it is a little equity and liquidity and capital markets are starting to dry up. We're already starting to see some of the big lenders, some of the Corvests and RCNs of the world already saying that they don't have any more money. And their Wall Street backed money is drying up quickly. With a lot of it has to do with this banking crisis, folks. So we got the banking crisis going on, and banks are going to have to be a lot more particular about where they allow their money to go. But also Wall Street hasn't really had the best of times as well. Over the last couple of months. What's the website for Conduit Capital? It is conduitcapital.com. So, you know, the whole water boy guy that says you can do it, you can do it. Yes, that's us. So conduitcapital.com is a website for that. If you want to put that in, there you go. Thank you for that. And big announcement next month. I've got the one, the only Jim Ingersoll that's going to be on next month, hanging out with us on this call. Jim puts on events. Jim has a lot of stuff that he, puts out. But you rarely ever get to actually hear from Jim, if you've noticed that or not. So this would be a rare opportunity to be able to pick his brain to kind of see what he's doing, and just learn from him. Super smart guy. Done really well for himself. I'm super excited to have him on next month. So May 16th is when that call is going to be. I think it's a Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central. I'm excited about having Jim One of my best friends in real estate, love having him. And then if you're local here to Northwest Indiana, I want to invite everybody to come to our meetup group with Al Perez, who I think within the last 18 months or maybe last 12 months and next 6 months, he's wanting to buy or has bought up to 1,000 units. And this guy is definitely on fire and has figured out the multifamily realm. But also one of the awesome things about Al that I love is when I was raising money for the seniors to go on this senior trip, and I've been on mission trips with Al myself personally as well. He was one of the biggest givers to that thing. He really is a big giver. He doesn't want to just work to have. He wants to work to have to give, and I love him and his family for that as well. But if you're wanting to add multifamily as an investor or even as like an operator yourself personally, Al's doing this all himself. He's not doing GP LP partnerships. He's been doing it all himself. Been doing a really great job. Purchased a lot so far and looking to purchase a lot here in the next 6 to 9 months as well. But if you're interested in that realm at all, you definitely want to show up to the investor local meetup group. We do not put this online. We do not put these on Zoom or anything. So you do need to come to the live meeting. The only people that get Zoom access are people that are yearly members or lifetime members. And maybe if you're interested in that, just for that, you guys can let us know. It's not something that we really thought about promoting, but just want to let you guys know about that as well. So Leon, I'm going to stop sharing screen here and I'm going to let you have the floor, sir. Thank you for being on today. Leon said he's got I think he said 15 hours of content or something you can give us today.
Yeah, it just depends on what segment of it you get. Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate that. I do like teaching and I am from Southern Mississippi, so I'm a little bit slow compared to all you guys that, are spread around the country. And I think you wanted me to talk about maybe some creative finance and win-win situations and a way of thinking. And I think it's a way of thinking. And there's some rules that I kind of have for myself and some parameters. And I want to talk about some of those first. And one of those things that I think about is, what are my goals and what are other people's goals? And I think no matter if we took everybody on this call or everybody in the whole country and we really drill down to see what folks' goals are, it boils down to basically two things, and that's freedom and peace. And we could talk the whole time about just freedom and peace, but I'm not going to do that, but we're going to inject it in here and there. And that freedom can be freedom from, it can be free, we can make a whole list of things that we want freedom from, and it can be freedom to. And one of those freedom tos can be giving, like you just mentioned about the gentleman that was your biggest giver, things that he's done and been successful financially has allowed him to have the freedom to give. And that's a biggie. That's some of the biggest blessings that we can have. And then the peace that comes from not only our Savior that you mentioned earlier, where the ultimate peace comes from, but the peace that comes from a lot of decisions that we make in our life. And our decisions in life a lot of times determine our freedom and our peace. And we can make decisions and do things that take away our peace. And I've been guilty of that, especially in my younger life. And today I try to look at every situation and the perspective, is this going to bring the other guy freedom and peace? And am I going to gain freedom and peace out of it? And it's a serious thing to reflect on and to think about and keep that in a perspective. And if the decisions you're making is not going to bring you freedom and peace and help somebody else, then it's probably something that you don't want to do. We all talk about or think about, and we've heard the story about, the people that are really successful. They climb the ladder of success. They go to school 16 years and be a doctor, and they find out that their ladder to success is leaning against the wrong building. And so, you know, that's something we have to think about, in my opinion. Another thing and I have a copyright on this one, is that, and you can write it down, you can use it, I don't care, that's fine. But we start out in life seeking opportunities. And if we're honest, trustworthy, and competent, opportunities start to seek us. I'm at a point in my life that I don't do any other than a little Facebook marketplace advertising or something like that. I don't do any advertising. I don't look for deals. I have people who bring me opportunities, not necessarily deals. You get opportunities and you make deals, but it seems like every day I have someone calling me or texting me or emailing me about an opportunity. And if you're a long-term thinker, that can happen for you, you know, and it doesn't take a long time. I'm 2, 3, 4, 5 years doing the right thing and learning and being competent. You know, great things can start to happen in your life. So we start out in life seeking opportunities. If we're honest, trustworthy, and competent, opportunities will begin to seek us. And
Hey, Leon, have you ever played the game Cash Flow?
oh gosh, look, I started that when my kids were in high school years and years ago. I mean, we played that back in, as soon as it came out. I think we were playing that game. And my oldest son, who is a state senator and very successful in real estate and businesses, would come home from grad school at night. And if he couldn't get us to play the game at midnight, he'd be playing it by himself. So yeah, it's a great game. And
It
it's
just
great.
made me think about that. I played that with my family and even one of my nieces on vacation. And that game is similar to that. Like when you start the game, you're seeking opportunities. Like, please let me land on an opportunity. Like, I've got to find an opportunity. But once you start getting enough money, it's interesting how people on the table like want to partner with you. They're like, hey, will you partner with me on this deal? Or will you help me with this deal? And so it just kind of made me think about that. I also kind of always tell people, like, if you're trying to raise money, the number one key to raising money is to pay people back. So if you can be honest and have integrity and be competent, like you just said, like there's going to be more. This is partly why we had to create our fund. It was because we had so many people wanting to loan me money throughout the year. So, you know, throughout the last, 10, 15 years. So that's 100%.
You made me think about a little deal that we did. It's been 4 or 5 years ago that, and I'm not going to tell the whole thing because it could take a whole hour, but to make a long story short, this guy had bought this house, paid cash for it. He was a retired engineer and he just wanted to try to make his money work for him. He rented it to the military for 4 years, worked out really well. And then that program went away. And then he had 2 professional tenants that just ripped him and he didn't know how to manage them. And it took away his freedom and his peace just tremendously. And we ended up buying that house, nothing down. The guy was 72 years old. He financed it for 30 years at 3%, no balloon for us. And about 4 or 5 months into that deal, he called me one time and he said, hey, look, Leon, he said, I don't know if it'll help you or not, but I've got another $400,000 sitting in my checking account if you guys can use it doing real estate deals. And we have that happen all the time. And we went a year or more before we even used any of that money. And I haven't used any. My son Adam's used it temporarily 2 or 3 or 4 times. But that's one of those kind of deals that helped me formulate that little saying. The other thing about creative finance is I see people, and I have some friends who think they have to go into a deal and make it the most complicated thing in the world. And just the more complicated they think, the better it is. And that's just the opposite of what you need to do. You need to keep it simple. Look for the simplest solution that's going to be a benefit to all the parties involved. And we've all heard keep it simple, stupid, the kiss thing. And the other thing to remember is we're not out to slip shut people. I've had so many opportunities to really hurt people I mean, I've had deeds in hand before I brought a cashier's check. You know, just because people don't know, and I could tell you story after story about that, but we're in this really long term to help people and to help ourselves. And if it doesn't work, we don't do it. And when I am negotiating, you know, you hear all these things about negotiating. And by the way, if you guys have never listened to The Secrets of Power Negotiating by Roger Dawson, you should get that and listen to it 10 times. It's called what I just said was Negotiating by Roger Dawson. It's absolutely an awesome deal, but don't use those things to rip off a poor homeowner or whatever when you're buying deals. And but they're good tactics to know, a lot of it, because, and I see my screen flutter and I'm going to turn it off for just a second. But if you know those tactics, you can know when they're being used against you. And it's amazing how much that those tactics can be used against you. And how you can protect yourself, not that you're going to use them to really get over on anybody. And you might turn that back on after it a little bit off, Tom, and it'll come back on. But you know, some other rules that I go by is, and the way I think is, you know, in most negotiating situations, people have the idea that you sit on the opposite end of the table and you fire these negotiating arrows at each other in hopes of scoring points and getting over on the other person. The way I like to think about it figuratively is to sit on the same side of the table with those people and work out a win-win situation. And I tell them that. I come right up front and say, look, I'm not one to sit here and I don't want to fire negotiating arrows at you. I want us to figuratively sit on the same side of the table and you know, see if we can't work through this, be honest with each other and see what works. And if we can work it out where it's beneficial to both of us, we'll do the deal. And if we don't, we don't. Another rule that I go by is I don't buy anything, and I'm a long-term buy and hold guy. And by the way, just to go back a little bit, in 1976, I did my first wholesale deal. And I didn't even know that's what you called it. I just did it. And I bought a house on 3rd Street. It had a contract on it in Lee Summit, Missouri, and sold the contract and closed on the deal like a week later and made $8,000. That was in 1976. So that was my first one. So I've been around doing this stuff for a long time. By the time Tom was born, I'd probably done 100 subject twos back in those days. So, but yeah, we sit on the same side of the table and we don't buy anything that our tenants can't afford. That's just a good, hard, fast rule. You know, you can go out there and put a lot of deals together, but just because you can do it creatively don't mean that they're going to make sense. And the other thing is, I see a lot of people fail because when they're starting out, they get a hold of a big project, they see everybody doing big deals and they jump on some big complicated deal and they just get wiped out because they're not ready for that big deal. Or you go buy too many properties at one time and you can't manage them all. And I think one of the biggest things that folks need to learn how to do is property and people management. I think that's one of the most valuable skills, whether you pass it off to someone else or whether you do it yourself. I think you need to know that, because like Jack Miller told me a long time ago, he said, you know, when you hire somebody else to manage your property, they charge you 10% and they lose 10% for you. And I still manage all of my own properties. And, you know, I'm about at that capacity at 70 years old. I about know when enough is enough, you know, and that's an important thing to know. But one thing in creative finance is, and I hope people ask questions if you want to. I'm all open to questions, and you can, I'm going to start my video again. Maybe my camera won't be messing up, and I saw someone else's that was messing up there too. But you know, when you start in the creative finance deal, one of the big mistakes that I see people start out with is when they're talking to the seller, they mention the word owner finance, seller finance, creative finance, and those are totally dirty words to a civilian seller. If you do that, they're absolutely gonna say no. And I think that if you leave those words out of your vocabulary, then you're going to have a lot more success moving in and finding out what the situation is. And the other thing that I like.
What do you use then? So do you use the word payments?
Well, I use the word payments, and I don't use months or years when I do bring that up. But I use, especially when it is a tired landlord, somebody that's been an investor, it's held property for a long time. I print out IRS publication 537, and I bring that with me, and I read that. I read that 537 about once every 6 months, whether I want to or not, and I refresh myself on it because there's so many tax benefits to a person who's held property for a long time in doing that. I had one guy here not too long ago. He had 13 houses. I've known the guy for a little while, went out to his house, and we were sitting down going through it, and I brought it up, and I pulled out this IRS publication 537. I've even highlighted certain points in it for particular sellers. And I tell them to bring it to their CPA, or I'll go with them to their CPA to talk about it. And that I've done that many times. But this guy was sitting at his table, and I pulled that out and laid it over there. And he said, well, hey, that's got the IRS logo on it. And I said, of course it does. It's, you know, I printed it right off their website, and it's one of their publications, and it lends credibility. If the IRS has got a 19 or 20 page publication about something, it must be something that's done a lot. And so it lends credibility. And I found that that's helped me get contracts and close sales a lot of times, and explaining how those tax benefits work and don't work. So yeah, good question.
Do you mind kind of going over just those top, I think there's 2 or 3 main, you know, those top level benefits right now? I mean, the way I understand it is they're basically having all of their depreciation they have to capture back right away.
That's right.
If they sell. So,
exactly.
I mean, obviously that's a pretty big deal, and they're going to have a huge tax consequence all at once when they sell for cash. But if they sell for payments, they can extend that over a period of time.
And usually by the time we get to this point, and I'll cover that here, great question. And I like those questions. Usually by the time we get to that point, they've given me a price already. And I ask a golden question that I got from Clyde Wilson years and years ago. And I do this every time that I think it's going to be a creative owner finance type situation. And I asked him, I said, well, look, you know, you've told me how much you want. Let's say 100,000. If I show up here tomorrow with a big old brown paper bag and it's got $100,000 cash in it, and you lay it out on that table right over there, we're at their house, and you lay it out on this table and you count it and it's all there. I ask them, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the money? And that question does 2 things for me. Number one, it tells me what their sense of urgency is. And it also will tell me what they're going to do with it, maybe. And if their sense of urgency is not very high and not very strong, they're going to give you that go to heck look, and that's none of your business. Well, that means they're not very motivated. They don't have a sense of urgency. But if they start telling you everything real fast, what they're going to do with it, that tells me that they're motivated And that also tells me what they're going to do with the money. And if they tell me they're going to go put it in the bank or whatever they're going to do with it, then the next question is well, what kind of rate of return are you expecting to get? And my next question is, well, what if I could pay you a much greater rate of return than that? And right now, and I will tell you, I don't care what the price is, as long as the deal works. I could care less what the price of the deal is. Because if they can have their price, if I can have my terms, it's like that seesaw deal. If they choose terms, which is cash, I get my price and I want it to be a discount. If they choose price, then I get my terms and I want wholesale terms. And we could talk a whole hour about what wholesale terms are. And I'm going to get back to your question about the tax benefits that goes with and how to use that publication 537. But it's all fits in a certain thing. So when I ask them and they tell me what to do with the money, what they're going to do with it, I ask them if, what if I could pay them a higher interest rate? And then another question is do you like paying taxes to the IRS? And most people are going to say, no, I don't. And so I would say, well, let's go through this. Let's suppose I pay you cash, and I like to deal with people who are more sophisticated. And if they're not, I'll lead them to their CPA, somebody they trust, and I'll go with them. And I'll say, well, hey, look, if you don't like paying taxes, what if we could arrange a way to keep you from having to pay so much taxes, and you can earn interest on money that really belongs to the IRS? What if you could postpone paying those taxes? And here's the scenario. If I pay you cash, figuratively, before you get to the bank or wherever you're going to put that money, the IRS is going to get their big chunk out of it. And then you're going to take it to the bank and you're going to get paid whatever, 4 or 5% on it now. It was like 0.1% or something. Before you get there, you're going to end up paying those taxes. They're going to come out. So you're going to have less money working for you at a smaller interest rate. Now, if we do an installment sale and you pull that installment sale out and you talk about it, and what they are going to pay taxes on that recapture of depreciation, and they're going to do that at ordinary income tax rates. But on capital gains, if they sell it for nothing down, they have no capital gains up front, and they're drawing interest on that money that would have gone to the IRS right up front had they sold it for cash. I'm now paying them interest on it at a rate greater than what they were getting at the bank, and or what they're going to get wherever they're going. And if we can set the terms right, if it's those terms are such that my new tenants can afford it, then I'll do the deal. I don't care what the price is. But then there's all kinds of ways to set those things up as far as price and whatnot. If I'm a seller, I probably want to charge a higher price and a lower interest rate. I see people bragging, well, man, I got 10% interest on that, or I got 12% interest. And I'm thinking, well, you might would have been better off if you'd got 3% interest as a seller or 2% interest as a seller, and moved your price up, just kept the payment the same. If you plug that in a financial calculator and you keep the number of payments the same and you keep the payments the same, you can jockey that principal up and the interest down and back and forth and make it beneficial. If I'm a buyer, I might say, well, hey, look, what if I would pay you, and we'll agree on payments. And then I say, well, what if I would pay you 12% interest? Would you like that better than 3% interest? And they might say, yeah. Well, we're going to make the same amount of payments over the same period of time, but that makes the principal less. If I ever go to pay it off sooner, it's going to be a smaller amount. So that's a whole big conversation right there too. But to give you just a quick I want to tell a real quick story about an opportunity I had one time when I went to this house, and it was probably one of the worst houses that I have ever walked through. I mean, it was just really, really bad. And it was so bad that when we walked through the house and walked out on the patio from the master bedroom, it was a nice 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, all brick in a very, very nice subdivision. This lady still lived there, and I won't tell you how bad it was, but I didn't even want to go back through the house. And I couldn't even ask the question that Pete Fortunato asked is, why would you want to sell a nice house like this? I mean, I couldn't even bring myself to ask that question. But when I asked her the paper bag, I asked her price, and she said $60,000. That was her price. And I said the paper bag question, and she said, well, I want to get a mobile home. She had about 10 dogs that had torn up her furniture and messed in the house and on and on and on ad nauseum. And she said, I want a mobile home out in the country where I can have my dogs outside and get some new furniture. And to make a long story short, I went to work, found the mobile home, got it moved, put on the land that she wanted. And I did it all. I had it all set up, and gave her $5,000 to buy new furniture. And when the smoke cleared, I had $32,000 in that deal. And she's is happy to this day, and this has been years ago, and that house is worth over $200,000 now, and has been rented to the same people all that same time, just from that paper bag question, you know. But someone asked a question, I think, about the Pub 537. What was that?
How would 537 impact sellers with homestead?
Okay, all right, so that's a whole different story. Because IRS section 121 is going to apply to that. If you're married and filing jointly, and you buy a house and you live in it, you live in it 2 out of the last 5 years, you can sell that house and as a married couple make a $500,000 profit tax-free, totally tax-free. If you're single, it's $250,000. That's section 121 of the IRS code. And that's for sellers who live in the house. It's their homestead. So publication 537 doesn't work there. So what it boils down to, when you're in a situation with a home seller like that, there's several things that makes that an opportunity for you and gives you a chance to give people some freedom and peace. And you know, if that's a house that's vacant, out of town owners, they're behind on their taxes, maybe the house needs some fix up, and they don't have the money to do it, or they don't have the wherewithal to do it. And there's a lot of problems there, and it's an uncomfortable situation. And remember that freedom and peace. We're looking to bring people freedom and peace. And the way you would do that in one of those situations is take that house off their hands, and you're able to do the fix up, all of those things. And the more of that list that I just gave you as part of the deal, then the more opportunity that you have to do a seller finance deal. Just to give you another quick example, I had a lady and my son Adam does a lot of marketing. He does a ton of marketing, and he does a lot of wholesaling, and he passes a lot of the deals that look like they're going to be seller finance to me. And he had one, and this lady, he had mailed her a letter. She was out of town. She was 2 years behind in her taxes, and she had read the letter and stuck it on her refrigerator with a magnet. And it had been there for about 6 or 8 months before she called him. And he called me, and I talked to her for 2 or 3 months before she came in from out of state to show me the house. Been vacant a couple of years, needed new flooring, new roof, new central. It didn't have utilities on, so I couldn't really tell, but it did end up needing central and air. I figured I was going to spend 20 grand on it. And she'd been offered $50,000 by a wholesaler. And by the way, this lady was no dummy. She was a real estate agent in another state. And it was just a situation she was in. Well, I ended up I offered her $100,000 with 5,000 down, and she wanted more down. And I said, look, I would rather take my money and spend it on this fix up, and that's going to make your collateral worth a lot more. And I said, with this $5,000, you're going to have to pay those $4,300 in back property taxes. And it was a bad situation. She was coming up on 3 years, about to lose the house. She didn't have the money to fix it up, to put it on the market. And so she did the deal. She was in her mid 50s, and she financed it for 360 payments, 3%, and no balloon. And I called her up about 2 days before the closing, and I asked her, and I said, look, I don't know if it'll help you or not, but I might can come up with the money to go ahead and pay you a year in advance for your payments if you'll give me a 15% discount. And she said, on the whole house? And I said, no, just add up a year's payments. We'll knock 15% off that. I'll pay you that in advance for 12 payments. And she said, well, Mr. Leon, she said, I wish I had 2 houses to sell you. And so we ended up doing that deal. And out of the last like 5 years, I think 4 times I've paid her a year in advance. I just got the loan modification for this last time back in the mail for paying her another year in advance. And she's as happy as she can be that. So, you know, it's a matter of helping people and in their situations. And when you're buying with creative finance, and I think owner finance is really the basis to all creative finance, just about, and it's so flexible. You can structure things in a million different ways. But if you focus on helping people find freedom and peace, both those deals, all those deals that I just mentioned involved freedom and peace for that seller. That first one where it was nothing down, the guy loaned us extra money, it was total peace for his family. They actually came to my house to write the contract. They wanted to see me, because if people are going to do business with you, they want to make sure you're both trustworthy and competent. Trustworthy, but if they don't think you're competent, they're not going to do business with you. If they think you're competent and not trustworthy, they're not going to do business with you. So this guy, this engineer guy, when we wrote the contract, he wanted to come to my house and see where I lived. And his wife went in our kitchen with my wife, and later my wife told me, she said, look, you guys are a godsend to us. You don't know what this means. You don't know how much you're helping us out. And all it was here's a guy that had an extra $400,000 in his checking account that he offered to loan us 4 months later. We were bringing peace to that family. That's what it's all about. The next one, this lady was living in a very nice house in well, not a nice house, in a very nice neighborhood, and she just wanted out. She wanted out in the country, and we gave her some freedom and peace, and that's how we brought that to her. This last deal I just mentioned, this lady, I know she was laying in bed at night, worried and concerned about not being able to pay the taxes. What am I going to do with this house? Am I going to lose it? And so when you offer on these deals, you're not a borrower, because borrowers are beggars, and you are not a beggar. The discussion needs to be about how you are solving their problem and what you're able to do for them, and not what the fact that they're, quote, loaning you money, which they're not loaning you money. They don't have any money. You're solving a problem for them, and it's the terms of the sale. And you can just do tons of these deals. And I don't care. We did a lot of these kind of deals when interest rates were 2.5%. I don't care how good the real estate market is and what it's going to be 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, whatever it is, because the real estate is an imperfect market, you have to look for those imperfections. And if you're buying Coca-Cola stock at a given second from anywhere in the world, you're going to pay the same price for it. But you can go into a really nice neighborhood and there's going to be an exception in that marketplace. There's going to be some people that are getting divorced. There's going to be people that's moved out of town. There's going to be houses that need to be fixed up. There's going to be people who lost their jobs that you can bring freedom and peace. And you know, if you think about it in that perspective, you can help a lot of people and find really truly freedom and peace for yourself. You know, I worry about a lot of these people I know that have gotten all these loans that are coming due here at, you know, they got 5-year balloons. Like Clyde Wilson told me years ago, balloons are for clowns. And one of the, you know, the fastest, they tell me the the shortest time period in the world is in New Jersey when you're sitting at a red light and it turns green and the car behind you blows the horn. The second fastest time period in the world is the time that when you sign a balloon note and when it comes due, it speeds your life up like you won't believe. And when it comes due, if interest rates have jumped way up and then your tenants can't afford it anymore, it's not a good deal. And if your bank is in trouble and they're calling those loans in and they need cash, they don't need that house, they're going to be looking at houses that have a lot of equity in them. You know, you're probably better off to be mortgaged to the hilt or not have one on it at all. So, you know, just a thought there to throw out. And I'm just running my mouth. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I mean, we can go on and on and on. Let's see if I have any quick other thoughts, you know.
I do appreciate your time. I know Pam asked a question about how much details do you give into them. I'm not sure if he answered that. I think that was talking about the taxes and all of that. If anybody else has any other questions, please feel free to start putting those in the chat. You know, it's interesting. You didn't really give a lot of tips and tricks about how to actually do anything specifically, which is, you know, what I love so much about Leon. What you really talked about is I wrote down 3 things. It's mindset, number 1. So how are you going into the deal? And it's the position. How are you positioning yourself? Are you positioning yourself as a person who's against, or are you positioning as yourself as somebody who's for that other person? And then also perspective. And that kind of perspective goes into, hey, what are we really trying to do here? Like, are we really trying to give this person freedom? Are we really trying to give this person peace? And that's what determines if it's really going to be a win-win situation. You know, there's a lot of negotiation books, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I have seen a lot of people take advantage of people. I've seen people take advantage of people in this realm when you're dealing with a seller, but also even investors, because they knew kind of what to do. They knew, you know, they knew what to say, you know, they knew how to be, you know, that person that somebody likes. But at the end of the day, they just had no integrity. They had no, you know, real integrity.
And a lot of those folks don't make it long term.
They won't.
You know,
you're 100% right.
They'll smell you out. Yeah.
It really matters that you care about doing what you say you're going to do. And eventually you get to that point that you mentioned at the beginning, that, you know, opportunities will start seeking you out instead of, you know, you having to actually go out and always always trying to, you know, find those opportunities. They're always reaching you out. So,
and that's kind of how our Helpers Not Hagglers Alliance was born. And, you know, we want to be helpers and not hagglers.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I was going to get to that next. So Leon does have Leon and his son, Adam. And I think there's another gentleman that's maybe helping.
Courtney, a lady, Courtney Freaky.
Courtney Freaky. So those 3 are actually, they have this Helpers Not Hagglers coaching program. And again, we're not on here just to promote, you know, a business, and Leon's not on here for that, but I always want to give people the opportunity to let people know how they can, you know, get more help and be able to be more maybe hands-on and, you know, with them. So can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
Well, and I really didn't come on here to sell. You know, it's we found a need there that there's a lot of people out there that's struggling, that need help along the way, and we think that how you do real estate matters. You know, that's kind of our little quote. My son Adam was born into the real estate business. He was born in 1983, and I was already, so he's lived it his whole life. Both my sons have. And he runs a very, very successful wholesaling business and buy and hold business. And Courtney is one of the sharpest young ladies that I know. I mean, she's at every Pete Fortunato, John Schaub, she'll be at Deal Makers if anybody wants to meet her and talk to her. But she owns the North Shore RIA in the New Orleans area. She's had it for several years. She does a weekly call-in show on WWL in New Orleans. But what we do, we have a subscription-based coaching group that it's $197 a month. You can jump on, off whenever you want to. We cover particular topics, and it's a private Facebook group where people can ask questions about ongoing deals and whatnot. And we work to help everyone, no matter what their level in real estate is, to close deals and do deals that, you know, just to help them along their way and teach them how to be helpers, not hagglers.
Awesome. And how can people find out about that?
You can find it on Facebook, and Courtney is the gatekeeper on that. So I don't even know how you pay or any of that stuff. She takes care of all that. So Courtney Freaky.
And then the Facebook group name is Helpers
Not Hagglers Alliance.
So if somebody from my team could put that in the chat there, Helpers Not Hagglers Alliance. Facebook group is how you guys can find out more information about that. So is anybody?
I didn't come on to sell that though. You know, I'm helping people, and I wish I'd have had time to tell more stories about actual deals. And let me just say one more thing. And you said it and made me think of it, is if you treat every problem like a nail, all you'll ever have is a hammer to work on it. And you know, there's so many things. Every deal is different. When you find out a person's situation, there's 100 different ways you can do it. I mean, one I did not too long ago was a 4-way deal. And my closing attorney, who's been in the business a long time, he's been doing deals for 20 years. His dad was a judge and one of my college professors in real estate law. And he called me like 2 days before, and he said, "Are you in town? Would you mind coming by and explaining this deal to me so I can make sure we get it?" But it was like a 4-way deal, you know, boom, 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 round the clock. And I put a big down payment on a piece of property. It went around the table and closed two or three other deals. And on the final deal, it came back in my pocket. Well, it was, so you can do all kinds of crazy, complicated things, but that's why I said up front is if, you know, you need to just do the simplest deal that solves their problem. You know, if it's like that one guy where we did nothing down and we got him out of a management headache, and here he is loaning us more money. So, you know, just a simple little deal. And you know, I failed to mention, I'm going to give one more golden tidbit of information. In your discovery, you spend more time finding out about the people than you do the sticks, bricks, and dirt. Yeah, you got to do your due diligence on the house, but you better find out about the people in their situation. And one of the golden questions to ask is, do you have children, especially with these older people? Because one of their objections is when you offer 360 payments and no balloon, they're going to say, look, I don't buy green bananas anymore. I'm not going to live that long. And so if they have kids, there's a way to overcome that objection if they have kids, because how are you going to distribute your funds to all the rest of your kids? And I've had some kids be meth heads and they don't want to give them a bunch of money. And I tell them, look, at my age, my kids might be paying your kids. And every month when they get that check, they're going to think about you. And so, you know, that do they have kids can be one of, and people like to talk about their kids. And so consequently, that can solve a lot of objections for you. And I have plenty of time. Inheritance taxes.
There's a question here. If you still have time, she has a question. Do you want to just pipe on here? As far as
well, heirs do, but it has to be, I forget what it is, like now over 10 million bucks or something that they inherit. And one thing is, I'm not going to get political, but you need to be careful who you vote for, because there are some administrations that want to get rid of the stepped up basis deal. In other words, right now, if kids inherit property or someone inherits property, then the basis of that gets stepped up to the market value as of the day of their death. I've got a 93-year-old lady that has apartments and a bunch of land, and I ended up sitting at her kitchen table. She's sharp as a tack, and she had just listed several pieces of her property with agents. And I asked her, do you like to pay your taxes? And I won't say what she said, but the answer was no. And she's 93 years old, like I said, sharp as a tack. And so she was going to call the agent and unlist those when I left, because I explained to her, and the piece of property we were talking to her about was like, I think it was 4 duplexes. And she was getting tired of managing it, had 2 kids, and those kids did not want anything to do with the property. It was just really aggravating to them. And I asked her, well, do you need the money? Well, no, I don't need the money. And I said, well, here's how, let's structure this deal. Okay. And I said, let us master lease your apartments from you. And so you keep getting an income from it, and we'll manage those apartments for you. And let us have the right to buy your property from you after you go to heaven. I didn't say after you die, I said after you go to heaven. We want the right to buy your property, and here's how we want it to structure it. And it was going to be a seller finance deal. And so we knew the kids didn't want the property, didn't want to have anything to do with it. So to set it up to solve her problem, the creative thing we did was master lease the property and manage it for her, get an option to buy it, get the kids to sit in on the deal and agree to this agreement before, while mom's there and we're all together. And then after she dies, then we could exercise the option, and the kids don't have to pay any capital gains or recapture of depreciation or any of that kind of thing. And that's how to solve that problem.
That's brilliant.
Oh, we could talk about those all day.
No, that's awesome. Anybody have any other final questions before we let Leon go? Definitely want to thank you for your investment in our community today, Leon. Appreciate what you stand for. I love the fact that you believe in integrity and honesty and competency. And like he said, folks, if somebody believes that you're trustworthy, if somebody believes that you're competent, like the chances of you being able to get the deal done go way, 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 way up in your favor. So get on their side of the table. I love that as well. And really what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out what your goals are and what your other person's goals are, whether you're negotiating with a lender, whether you're negotiating with a seller, whether you're negotiating with anybody, and trying to help and see if freedom and peace is going to be the outcome of all of that. Love the golden nuggets. I might have to go back and listen to some of these myself. I'm going to get some of my acquisitions people that work for me to kind of, listen to this. I thought bringing the IRS 537 to the actual appointment was another brilliant thing. And honestly, I never thought about this, but doing the whole lease option with people like you just mentioned, and having you purchase the property after they go to heaven, like Leon said, there, really does eliminate all those taxes for everybody. And that's genius. Love that as well. I wrote down Power of Negotiation by Roger Dawson. Make sure you guys get that book and read that as well. Wrote down a whole bunch of notes, but appreciate your time, Leon. If you guys want to meet Leon in person, he will be at Dealmaker. So I want to remind everybody about that as well. Him and his son. Is Adam going to be there too this time?
He is. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. You guys can also.
He's smart. He's way better than I am.
I don't think that's the case, but definitely appreciate you.
And Courtney's going to be there too. She'll be a great one to visit with. She won't be speaking, but she'll be there.
Yes. Awesome. So I want to remind everybody, if you're not already in the Facebook group, please go to the Facebook group, Real Estate Free For All, and you guys can, share more stories there. You guys can ask more questions. Want to remind everybody about next month's call. It's going to be on May 16th. I believe that's a Tuesday, 10 a.m. Central Time with Jim Ingersoll. Always looking forward to an opportunity to be able to spend some time with Jim. If you're local, please show up on Thursday, 6 o'clock to see Al Perez talk about adding multifamily to your portfolio. Have a good time with that. And don't forget to sign up for the Free For All September 7 through 9. I know it's a little ways away, everybody, but you want to get your tickets. I think we're already over halfway sold out on that. So hopefully you guys can make it to that as well. And like always, everybody, remember to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. Love you guys. God bless. Have a good day. Have a good week. Pray for me this week. I've got quarterlies with all my companies. So lots of super hard work before me this week. But love you guys. And we will see you guys next month. Have a good day.